and welcome to the Artist Loft. I'm your host, Bobby Wilson, and I am here today with the very talented Doro Reeves. Thank you very much for coming today, Doro.
My pleasure, Bobby.
So, you're a keyboardist.
Yes, I am.
Can you tell me how you got started in playing the keyboard?
Well, it started way back at the beginning of my life because I was raised by a couple of people who are very hardcore music lovers. My parents were really very intensely lovers of classical music. My mother played piano, had started as a child, and they fell in love over Bach, which is kind of romantic. And, it just started from there. And if you have it in your blood to compose music and you listen to great music from your very most formative period of your life, I mean, something's bound to rub off. And I learned a lot by hearing all that classical music about what makes a composition work, and it's something about musical symmetry and form. I'm not real well versed in the language of music, but there are certain, I think, rules that fit with composing, whether you connect with those intuitively or academically, and so it just all started from there. Being exposed to great music taught me everything I need to know.
When did you first begin composing?
I think it started when I was about maybe 6 years old, and I started just picking out melodies that I heard my mother playing. I started picking things out by ear, and then from there I just started coming up with my own ideas for melodies. The earliest composition that I remember, I composed around the age of 10. It's called Bubble Chaser. I had an aquarium, and there was this little black molly fish that used to chase the bubbles up the bubble stack. And so it inspired the piece. Took me about 55 years to figure out how to finish it. I added I'm not going to play that today, but anyway, I added an introduction and some middle parts and spaced out the repetition of the earlier part, and it made it a whole piece.
What kind of things inspire you?
I'm inspired by, it could be the mood that I'm in, it could be an experience that I've had, there's some things that are happening in my life, just like everybody's life, that are really frustrating, and so I might compose something that's really Actually, I did that recently. It felt really cathartic. I called it Hell's Kitchen. Or I might have just heard a particular piece of music that just really turns me on, and sometimes that'll spark ideas. Sometimes that can backfire, though. Occasionally, doesn't happen very often, but there's a tune that I created called Roger's Zoo. And every time I played this at a gig or anywhere, at least one person would come up to me and say, "You know what? That sounds just like Walking My Baby Back Home." Now, I'm sure I heard Walking My Baby Back Home a few times, but I wasn't consciously aware of that. And I thought that was my melody, but I figured, hey, all these people they can't all be wrong. So I created another melody and kept all the rest. And now it's my piece. But so that's how it can backfire. But generally, there are many ways that I can be influenced. Sometimes it's just, I'm just kicked back, real relaxed, and in a certain kind of mood, and something will just pop into my head that's real catchy, and I go to the piano, and the rest is history.
So tell me a little bit about your music career.
Well, actually, my music career, the closest thing that I would say comes to a career is a band. It has to do with a band that we played in back in Santa Cruz. Lorin, my husband, and I both played in this, it was just a little small ensemble, 3 people initially. Gary MacCready played sax. Lorin played a number of things, hand drums, harmonica, recorder, flute, oh my goodness, dulcimer, guitar. Lorin was kind of like our jack of all trades. And, so we got financial backing, and so we toured, meanwhile we created all this original material and used a lot of my own solo material, kind of incorporated it into the band repertoire and added the other parts. And with the financial backing, we were able to tour the country, and we did this twice a year for about 2 months at a stretch. We did it when the weather was most likely to be mild, like in the spring and in the fall. And we started the first tour, we went up through the Pacific Northwest from Santa Cruz, and then the rest of the tours we went back east. Many stops along the way, and we played in all kinds of venues, ranging from college cafeterias. Those are kind of like my least favorite gigs, especially the 10 o'clock in the morning ones. But you know, there were, you know, some clubs that were really fun to play with. We played in concert halls, outdoor festivals. The high point for me was playing the Smithsonian.
Wow.
I guess we actually, I won't say I guess, we got a good review. I can't remember the publication, but it was somewhere in that neighborhood, and Smithsonian caught wind of it, and they had a concert series they were putting on with the different artists featured at each of the series, and they had us, and it was a wonderful experience, and I think that was really the high point for me from all those tours.
So you've played with various bands?
Yes. You know, back in Santa Cruz, California, it was Northwind. And for a while, I also played in an all-women's Motown and funk band called Pearl Divers. It was a pretty large band, and about 10 or 12 members, contrast to our little quartet. It was by then a quartet. We added a violinist later on to Northwind. And then Lorin and I moved up here because we had an opportunity to buy property, and there's just no way that we could have afforded to buy property in California. So we had to tear up roots and move. And we ended up here, and you know what? This is our home now. We've lived here for 25 years, and we're happy here. And I actually can say that my favorite people that I played with have been up here. We played in Soul Patch back in the late 90s. And then in Soul, I played, I won't say we, just me. I played keyboards. It was like a 10 or 12 piece band called Soul Patch. And then with some of those same people in Soul Pie for about 5 years. And also I played in Nancy McIntosh's blues band, Next Exit. And I also played at a number of the Lollapalooza outdoor music festivals. Actually, they were very, this was out in the outskirts of the Myrtle Point area. Off Middle Creek Road. David Christian would throw those along with Vinny Cadera, and they were a blast. And they started out being kind of like informal parties, attended by maybe, I don't know, 50 or 100 people, and then they just grew into these big festivals. And so I played at a number of those. That was really fun. So, you know, I've been around.
So tell me about your experience at Orcoast Music.
Well, that started by meeting John, and I met John at one of those Lollapaloozas I was just talking about. And we literally met on stage because I heard him playing with Alex Metcalf on saxophone and this really cool guy on bass. And another, you know, it was just really, I just could not help myself. So I jumped up on stage and started playing with him. And John liked what he heard. But the funny thing is I wasn't plugged into the mains. So if you watch the video, you can hear me at a whisper and everybody else's just sounds just fine. But John could hear me. So as soon as there was a break between songs, John goes, "Wow!" It was like really a rush for everybody, and it was a lot of fun. So that's how I met John. And our friendship, I mean, geez, you know, what better way for a friendship between musicians to start? It just, you can't... You just can't beat that. So after that, John would occasionally invite me to sit in with him at a gig. That happened a couple times, like at the Blackberry Festival, if I recall correctly, downtown Coos Bay, that they throw every year in August. There were some years back, I played that with him. And we occasionally perform at the open mics that he has every other Friday at his little theater right next door to Orcoast Guitar Shop. And we also have jams there every Saturday from 2 until 5 with a few guys that get together on a regular basis with us and John. So we do a lot of stuff with John, and we've had a lot of fun with John through the years.
Well, you are obviously a very talented woman. And so while I have you here today, do you mind coming over into our studio and playing a couple of songs for us?
Do I mind? Hey!
I was hoping you'd say yes.
I can't wait. Yeah, okay. And before I get started, I'd just like to say that I met Steve at the last open mic that I participated in about a month ago. And there's this one particular piece I played there that Steve really liked, so I'm going to dedicate that one to Steve. This first tune is called Al's Waltz, and it's dedicated to an uncle of my husband's on his mother's side, who I was especially fond of. And this was a very warm, low-key, unassuming guy. You'd never guess what a war hero he was. He fought in World War II, and he was on a big ship. I don't remember the name of it, but it was an Iwo Jima, and they were under kamikaze attack. And Al climbed down the side of that ship, turned off the valve to the gas, I guess it was. Saved a whole bunch of lives. And after he came back, he became a fireman. And I'm sure he saved a whole bunch of more lives. So there were a lot of people walking around, or probably still walking around today, that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Al. And so this is to Al, Al's Waltz.